Hey, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be a part of the very first LlewellynCon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Llewellyn. And before we begin, I just want to say to everyone, wherever you are right now in this journey of coming into bringing about greater racial justice and equality, I want to salute you and I want to thank you. So we don't have a whole lot of time, but I do believe that in 20 minutes before we go to the questions, that I can really offer you a way to interact with your home in a magical way and in a powerful way, in a way that's going to make a huge positive difference in your life. So to begin, let's think about this question. Do you love where you live? Do you love where you live right now, exactly as it is? Because that's a really beautiful place to start. It's not about like, let's make sure you love where you live by whipping it into shape, and doing a total makeover on it. And, making all these changes so that you feel good about it. It's not that. It's starting. It's such a powerful place to start when you start with loving it as it is now. From there, you can do a lot. You can make positive changes for sure, but it's with love. It's not from a place of like, this is God, we've got to fix this, because you may know I wrote a book called Magical Housekeeping, came out in 2010 and like forever ago. And before that, during that, I was a feng shui consultant in Los Angeles. And so often when I do presentations, when I would do feng shui consultations, the people that I would be working with or talking to would start out with all their grievances about their house. Well, we really want to move here. And, I really don't like this part about my house. And, and it was, it's such a much more empowering space, just like with our own bodies, with our own selves, to be like, this is where I am now. So how can I love where I am now? It's a way of activating the magical tool that is your house. And it's a way of coming into the present moment, which is such an important aspect of the magical spiritual path, of the spiritual path in general. So I would start this tip alone will make such a positive difference in your life, is to be like, how can I come into an appreciation and love of where I live now? Because, and another thing that this is right in alignment with the same concept is that nobody's house is perfect. Like often people will use the concept of feng shui or design as a way to like measure the ways that we aren't perfect. And nobody's house is perfect, but it can be perfect for you now. And it doesn't mean like if we decide we want to love where we live now, it doesn't mean that, that means I have to live here forever. That means I'll never get to change this house. It just means like, okay, yeah, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe I want to make some changes. Maybe I'd like to move at some point. And maybe I'd like to make, any number of things, have it be more clean, more clutter-free. And right now, this is where I live. And so like, look at the things you do love about it. So we'll start with that. And then from there, everything else that I talk about, I want it to not be like, now let's look at all the things I'm doing wrong. It's just enhancing that love of where you live. So even just right now, where you're sitting, most of us are sitting at home. Let's come into harmony. Let's set that intention to come into harmony with the sacred space that is your home, that is surrounding you now. The space underneath your home, the space around your home is sacred space. It's nature. From the perspective of the earth, the time that your house has been where it is, that your neighborhood, your city has been where it is not even any time at all. The earth remembers the sacred forest or clearing. That's the energy of that space. So remembering that, acknowledging that wherever you live, beneath you, around you, that's sacred space. Okay. So let's move into now clutter clearing. We have to move into clutter clearing first, because we're going to talk about a number of aspects. That self-care, creating sacred space, creating a healthy energy flow. So we're also going to talk about self-care in your space, creating sacred space, and creating a healthy energy flow. But the reason we're talking about clutter clearing first is because that helps harmonize all those other aspects. And it's a way of creating the space. When we let go of what we don't love or use or need, we're creating a vacuum so that we more easily magnetize the things that we do want. And it's a process of raising your vibration, of getting clear on who you are, on what you love, on what you need, on what you appreciate, what you want to share your space with. Okay, so many people, when I do workshops on this, will ask every time. So before we get to Q&A, I will answer some questions that I have heard like pretty much every time I've done a magical housekeeping workshop. One of them is, how do you know if it's clutter? So there's a real simple way of asking, do you love it? Or do you need it? Or do you use it? Do you love it? Do you need it? Or do you use it? If the answer to all of those is no, most likely it's clutter. Now, Marie Kondo, who you may have heard of, who wrote The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, I really think it's so brilliant, her idea of saying, does it spark joy? Which is really maybe a kind of a clearer way to talk about something that I've talked about in magical housekeeping, which is the energetic method of, like, if you're a sensitive person, you can just look or feel, hold. I mean, it depends on how your intuition works. It could be holding it, it could be looking at it, it could be touching it, to see, is this taking energy from you? Is this draining you, or is it nourishing you? Maybe it's neutral, but if it's neutral, then you want to kind of look at the energetic bargaining method, which is like, if it's not really giving me energy, it's not really taking energy from me, what is it for? You know, is it like something that, like a toaster? Yeah, the toaster, there's a reason for that. But if it's just taking up space in your home, you know, you're paying rent on that, or you're paying mortgage on that, you're dusting it, you're spending energy and time, you're walking around it. So it's actually over time taking energy from you. So as people who are sensitive to energy, simply by clearing out everything that drains you of energy in your space, you will feel more energized. You will feel clearer. You will feel like you have more time. You will literally have more time. I don't know why. I mean, we could say that it's because you will be spending less time cleaning or looking for things, but it goes beyond that. There's something transcendent, there's something magical that happens to time when you clear clutter from your space. And this includes, you know, this doesn't mean that we're going to take all the clutter and put it in your dad's basement. That's still connected to you with a cord of energy. If it's in storage, if it's in your car, if it's at work, wherever it is, energetically, if you own it, you have a relationship with it, you're connected to it with a cord of energy. So you want to make sure that you are being nourished by everything you own instead of being drained by it. Okay, so now before we move on to the next bit of information, perspective, there's a question that many of you, I'm sure, are thinking, because this is another question I have gotten at, I think, every magical housekeeping presentation I've done, which is, what do you do when your partner has clutter and you don't? So in that situation, and I promise I'll move on from clutter right after this, in that situation, what you do is you clear your own clutter. Do you have any clutter? Instead of focusing on the huge closet full or room full or garage full of clutter that your partner has, focus on the drawer, the medicine cabinet, the refrigerator, the glove compartment of clutter that you have. So only once you have cleared every single bit of clutter that is yours are you allowed, this is my rule, to complain about your partner's clutter. And so just focus on that. If that's a question you have, just focus on that. It's really interesting to see what happens when you do that. Quite often your partner will just naturally want to clear clutter on his or her own, on their own. But that's not the point. The point is to focus on what you can do, because it's not just like, the reason why the partner often clears clutter is also because you're just getting energy moving in your space. Any amount that you can get moving. That's why starting with what's easy is good too, instead of like, oh, I have a whole garage full, like being like, okay, well, let me just focus for now on this drawer and not think about the garage. Like any little tiny bit of energy that you free up, you're freeing up stuck energy, you receive energy. It comes flowing back to you. So you're getting that focus on the big picture of getting unstuck one piece at a time, rather than, controlling the partner's huge clutter problem. Okay. Next, let's talk about self-care. So obviously all of this, the clutter clearing, is also self-care. Another way to promote self-care in this space, which is so important for all of us right now, with this huge transition of energy that our culture, our world is going through, an important way to look at self-care in your space is to look at imagery. Look at all the imagery in your artwork, also in your photos that you're displaying, and tune in and see, like, if it's artwork, say to yourself, what is the story? If I had to tell a story about this artwork, what's happening in it? What would it be? So when I used to practice feng shui professionally, and I would ask people that, often they would start by saying, oh, I got this because I like the colors and it went with the sofa, and I got this when we were in Mexico, or, it would kind of be like a story about it. But I'm talking about if you were telling like a fairy tale that was based on the imagery in the picture or the statue, even if it's abstract. This is a psychological exercise. What if there's people in it? What are they doing? What's their relationship? How do they feel? How wealthy are they? How much do they love themselves? Because the reason we ask that about imagery is because any image that you are portraying to yourself every single day in your space is giving you a message about yourself. So this is an interesting exercise. Once you do this, once you go, what is the story here? How in love is that couple? How happy are they? Where are they going on that boat? Then you will see your own life. There is in some area that is being reflected back to you in your own life experience, in the way you perceive your life in the world. So look at your imagery, look at your photos, ask yourself, is everyone in this photo happy? Is this a happy time? And this is not because we want to pretend that life is always only happy. This is because these are relentlessly, day in and day out, giving you messages about yourself and your life. So we want to create a space that nourishes you and that gives you visual affirmations of what you want to experience. Okay. So one more little thing about that, you can also consciously choose imagery as visual affirmations. So if it's like, oh, I really want to manifest more money, okay, I'm going to look for an image that to me just helps me feel prosperous, gives me the feeling of flowing energy and wealth. So could be a fountain, could be the ocean, could be an orchard and fruit, or something that makes you feel rich. You know, something as simple as a new bath mat, like a plush wine-colored bath mat, for example. If that speaks to your sense of luxury, that's the vibration of luxury is in your field. So bath mats aren't super expensive, but if a bath mat makes you feel every time you put your feet on it like, oh, I'm in a luxury spa, that's a huge way to help manifest abundance in your life. Okay, let's move on to sacred space. So of course, clutter clearing relates to sacred space. Obviously, if we think of our entire house as an altar, as a temple for the divine being that is you, then we do not want garbage in it. We don't want things that don't honor the temple. And then, of course, other ways to create sacred space, setting the intention and clearing the space. So you could cleanse the space with sage smoke. You may do that. It's a very common magical practice. Or Palo Santo smoke, or smoke from Nag Champa, or frankincense. Or maybe you don't want to cleanse with smoke, in which case you could put some essential oil in some spring water and cleanse with that. Even that, maybe you have cats. You don't want to, put them in danger. In that case, you can call on the divine in a way that feels powerful for you and ask for the divine. I like to work with Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael for space clearing. You don't have to do that. I ask them to cleanse my space, to move through every room and area and vacuum up any stuck or challenging energies, and then to fill and surround the space with gold and white light, in which only love remains, through which only love may enter. So you don't even need any tools to do space clearing. And once you clear the space, you can empower it. So you can send, let's say you want to manifest romance. You want to bring the energy of romance into your space, manifest it or enhance it. Then you can call on pink light, or you can call on golden light with rose petals in it. And you can move that light around in a clockwise direction. So clearing, it's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty in the northern hemisphere. It's reverse in the southern. But clearing, even if you're doing it without tools, you clear in a counterclockwise direction. You can envision that clearing vacuum of light, divine light, moving through your home, each room and area in a counterclockwise direction. And then you can call on light to fill, to bless. You can empower that light with whatever energies you want. You can call on whatever divinities you'd like, or botanicals. Like I said, with the rose, you could call on mint for freshness. You could call on rosemary for health and wellness. And then you can envision that light gently moving in a clockwise direction in a sphere of light around your space to seal it in. And that's protective too. So you can also ask for that protective light to completely protect your home. You could even call on divine energy to surround your home and project positive energy inward, and to neutralize negative energy, or reflect it. Okay, so let's talk about energy flow. We have just a couple more minutes before the questions. And of course, clutter clearing helps with energy flow because it removes stuck energy. It helps the energy move in a buoyant way. And energy flow, you can think of energy as moving through your home like water or air. So if you think about the way that water moves through a stream, and then you think about the places where, maybe leaves might get stuck as it's flowing through. Those are the areas, like it's the corners usually, where you want to pay extra attention. Maybe when you do some space clearing, you could clap in the corners sometimes to disperse stuck energy. And you can also look and see where's the energy getting stuck in the house. You can feel it because energy flows where attention goes. So for example, if you have stuff behind a door, Like, let's say you have a little bookcase behind your door, and every time you open the door, it hits the bookcase. If you were to move that bookcase, then you open the door, you know, the energy flows in. Not only does it flow in, but I have more of a sense of ease. I have more of a sense of possibility, of expansion. So this is that tuning in to, how do I feel in my space? How can I let that inform my understanding of energy flow? And how can I unstick any stuck areas? Lighting can also be a way to tune in. Like if there's a shadowy area, this is why I often recommend lighting underneath cupboards in the kitchen. Like if there's cupboards and then there's a space underneath them that's shadowy, if you can have lighting installed or even hide like some twinkle lights under there to light up that area, it changes, it makes the energy move in a healthier, more buoyant way. So if you notice that, like, oh, that corner is really dark, my energy my attention kind of dies in that corner, I'm going to put a lamp there, or I'm going to bring some twinkle lights in, or I'm going to hang a mirror across from the window so that the light comes in during the day. So this is like an overall way to look at the way that energy is flowing through your home. So you don't need to look at a bunch of individual feng shui recommendations. You can, and that's great. But if you just have this understanding of energy flow like I'm describing, you start to be awake and aware, like, oh, I put in that light in the corner and then I always feel better in this room. You know, over time, you'll start to just have that internal sense. Okay, so time for questions. Let's open it up. So I'll keep an eye here. Thanks, Donna, for the heart. Oh, you're welcome, Dina. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about feng shui, let me know. Erin, I'm so glad you were here. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Okay, Cynthia asks, is there a cure for noisy neighbors? You know, this is something that I know about firsthand as a longtime renter. Yeah, so white noise is kind of an obvious one. If you can bring in white noise like at night, you know, maybe a fan or white noise machine. Sometimes if it's outdoors, you can do wind chimes, you can do a fountain. And wind chimes and a fountain, they also help shift energy. So a fountain outside, and you can get even like a bird bath with a solar powered water wiggler to just kind of make that noise. It doesn't have to be like a big elaborate thing. But those also create positive energy and they create a shield. So, so they have that added benefit, not just like blurring the noise, but doing that of shifting the energy. And also with challenging neighbors in general, you can also hang a mirror facing them and set the intention to reflect any and all negative energy back their way. But you don't want to make this obvious to them because that can be insulting. Like if they see a mirror on your door reflecting toward them, you know, they might Google it if they don't already know about feng shui, and that might hurt their feelings. So what you can do is you can hang a mirror. You can actually take the reflective side of the mirror, even a little tile. This is about intention. Take a little mirrored tile and set the intention to reflect any and all negative energy back to its source. Put the mirrored side toward your wall, but toward the neighbors. Then you can like hang something on top of it, like a picture. So you don't have to see the back of a mirror, but you set that intention and it's just neutral. It's just, you know, any energy, just send it on back their way. Okay. So, oh man, there were a lot of questions while I was talking. Let's see. Okay, Debbie says, should mirrors always be across from windows or can they be placed in other areas? Yes, I have a whole blog post about mirrors because there are a lot of details. Placing them across from a window is often a really cool idea. You know, you should want to look and make sure, is it reflecting stuff I want to see? But it doubles the energy in a room. It brings in more light. But they're very useful in feng shui. So if, for example, you have a staircase that feels somewhat like the energy's going straight down in it, because staircases often have that. So it's good. Like there's ways to stabilize that, like by hanging your pictures horizontally instead of, you know, downward sloping. But another way would be to place a mirror across from the bottom step to help move some of that energy. You know, it's coming straight down, just help kind of neutralize it and move it back up. But yeah, there's lots and lots. You want to also make sure that mirrors are not positioned across from each other, reflecting each other. That creates frenetic energy because there's no place for the energy to stop. So keep an eye. If that's happening somewhere in your space, you'll want to move that mirror, or if it's built in, you'll want to curtain it. Okay. So Tony says, my big problem is wanting to hold on to something that I may not be using now, but may need later. How do I work with that? So for me, my preference, because I think that's a challenge. I get that question often too. And I think that's a challenge for everybody, honestly. And so for me, my choice, I have made the conscious choice to err on the side of clearing too much. You know, so it's like, have I worn this in the last year? Do I love this? Do I really, like, how long has it been since I've used these craft supplies? Do I really like sewing? This was something I learned recently. I loved sewing for so long, and now I don't love it anymore. Actually, I should maybe really reflect on my sewing machine. But anyway, yeah, so my choice is to err on the side of clearing too much. Now, over the years, you just find your balance with this, because to me, it's like having fewer things feels so good that I will think like, okay, well, if I ever do want to do that, maybe I will start loving sewing again. Well, whenever that day comes, if it comes, I'll get a new sewing machine. But over the years, sometimes I am like, oh my gosh, I'll see a picture and be like, oh, that coat, why did they get rid of that coat? So, you know, you learn as you go. And, you know, like, it's kind of like, probably I had a good reason for it. I probably hadn't worn it for a while or didn't love it, but maybe I could have just put it in a box for a while and pulled it out later to see if I liked it again, you know? So you learn as you go. But I think kind of taking the seriousness out of it, letting it kind of be a lighthearted thing, and noticing, really tuning into the energy of it. Like, is this something that is glowing with energy for me? Or is it kind of taking the energy out of the room? Is a good way to work with it. And also to consider, because I think that often comes too from wanting to have, you know, wanting to conserve money. So remembering that when you create the space, when you let go of things that are draining your energy, you are creating a more abundant flow. And there's even like that, like, it's okay if I let go of it, because if I need it, it'll come back to me. That's an abundant mindset. So that's the relationship. Like, we want to notice what the relationship is with our stuff, with our home. And if the relationship is, it's safe for me to give this to my friend who loves sewing, because if I ever love sewing again, something will come to me. That's how it works. You know, that's a belief that becomes true for us when we hold it. Okay, thank you guys so much. So, okay, let's see. So Julie says, do you have any tips for when you might be sick or chronic illness and you can't physically do very much, or your energy is low? Yeah. So in that case, be gentle with yourself. Focus on loving yourself, on taking care of yourself. And when there's a moment that you're like, well, do I have energy? I would ask yourself, what energy do I have? Do I have the energy to look through my medicine cabinet and just take everything out, wipe it down, and only put back in the stuff that I use or love or need, or that isn't expired? And if the answer is no, then don't. You know, rest. Maybe think, oh, but if I open this window, if I bring in some fresh flowers, You know, if I sit out on my patio, then I will feel like I'm loving myself and taking care of myself. It's always just meeting yourself where you are. I will say that even though I'm generally pretty healthy, when if there's a day where I feel low energy or I feel depressed, I feel like, oh, I just want to lay in bed all day. When I do often, like sometimes it's good to lay in bed all day if you're really tired or you need rest. But often I will think, I have a feeling that if I clean one drawer, I'm going to want to clean another drawer and it's going to shift my energy. And it often does. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to put on some music. I'm going to light some incense. I'm just going to clean out this cupboard or whatever. I'll be like, oh, I have so much energy. I want to keep going. So it's interesting just to be aware of where you are. But sometimes, often, especially if you have chronic illness, you will not want to clear clutter. So I wouldn't beat yourself up for that about clearing clutter or decorating or whatever. It's not necessarily a priority as long as you're tuning into what can I do? What will nourish me? Okay, guys, thank you so much. This has been a delight. I am a minute over. So thank you again, Llewellyn. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks, guys.